Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're in Masechtas Yevamot daf Chaf. We are going to begin on Chaf Aleph by the Mishnah. Klal Omer b'Yevamot. It's a general rule that we've established already when it comes to Yevamot, that the din is Koshi Iser Ereva Lo Chalatzas Lo Misyavemes. In the event that Reuven dies childless, but their wife is an Ereva to Shimon, so then the din is that he will not do Chalitza, and certainly will not do Yibum. And on this Rashi says, Saras v'koshkein he. Not only would he not be able to do Chalitza or Yibum on the Ereva self, which is Pashut, but as we've established, like Beis Hillel, even the Tzara, even the co-wife. Isser mitzvah, Isser kedusha, when it comes to an Isser mitzvah, which we're going to explain later on, the din is that by both mitzvah or kedusha, Chaletzis vo misyavemes. Chalitza is done, but not Yibum. Again, we'll understand what that means as we go through the Gemara. Achosa she Yevimta. When it comes to a sister who's a Yevama, Chaletzis vo misyavemes. So what is this situation? So let's say you have Reuven and Shimon, who are brothers, and they were married to Rachel and Leah, who are sisters. Reuven and Shimon die. So the din is, of course, that Levi is supposed to do Yibum, but the problem is Rachel and Leah are both sisters. Obviously, he can't do Yibum with both of them. So the din is Levi only does Chalitza with one, unless one of these women is actually an Ereva to Levi. If one of those women, let's say Leah, somehow is an Ereva to Levi, so then obviously he doesn't do Yibum or Chalitza with her, but the Chiddush is that when it comes to the other woman, Chayletzes o misyavemes, he could do Chalitza or Yibum. Why? They're sisters, yeah, but it's not a case of Tsaras Ereva. So since it's not a case of Tsaras Ereva, so therefore it is not a problem. Okay, so therefore he could technically do even Yibum. Okay, weiter. Let's see this Rashi. Achosa shel Ereva. Kashi Yevim Tokikon. Shanaf Shte Achayos Mishteach Ach, and again, you had Rachel and Leah who fell to Levi because Reuben and Shimon both died. Ha'achas Asur Misho Ereva, Kagon Shehi Kalato. So if Levi was somehow related to Leah, O Chamosa, a sister, a mother-in-law, so he would be able to actually do Yibum with Rachel. And then the Mishnah says, Isser Mitzvah Shniois, when it comes to an Isser Mitzvah Shniois Medivri Seifrim, and Isser Kedusha is Almano Kohen Gadol Gushel Chotzel Kohen Hedget. Mamzer and the Sinul Yisrael Bas Yisrael and the Sinul Mamzer. So the Mishnah actually explains what each one is. That when we mentioned Isser Mitzvah, that's referring to something which is Shnios, which is a Din D'Rabbanan. So not an actual Ereva, but Shnios, that's like removed. And therefore it's not Isser D'Oraisa, it's Isser D'Rabbanan. So since it's only Din D'Rabbanan, we say at least you have to do Chalitza. Isser Kedusha is the same thing. A widow to a Kohen Gadol, or a Gerusha, Chalutza to a Kohen Hedget, is not supposed to marry. Mamzer and the Sinul Yisrael, Bas Yisrael and the Sinul Mamzer. So all these different situations. Says Rashi, Gerusha, Chalutza to Kohen Hedget. She'avar Achiv Hames. Let's say the brother violated this, the guy who died, and Vanasa Chalutza, or Gerusha. He married a divorced woman. Now a Kohen's not supposed to marry a divorced woman, but he did. Ukshemes, now that when he dies, Sricha Chalitza, she will still need Chalitza. Shari Tyson lo, but Kedushin. The Kedushin Tyson Mechavi Lavin. Even though, again, a Kohen was not supposed to marry a Gerusha, but it's a Lav. And this Lav, the Kedushin is still Typhus. And therefore, because of that, Chalitza must be done. But Yevumi lo, Shari Asur lo, Lazeshu Kohen. Because a Kohen's not allowed to marry her because she's a Gerusha, so you can't do it. You have to do it. We're not going to say she's completely off. So we still say that there is some connection, again, because the condition was typhus, so at least we require Chalitza. So again, that is how the Mishnah explains what does it mean, Isser Mitzvah, and what is Isser Kedusha. Okay. So Klal Esuimai, what is this general rule coming to include in our Mishnah? So where it says, Omer Rapim Bar Papa Lasui Tsaris Islandus. It's going to include the tzara of an islandess. Says Rashi, prepare kama dolei chaletzes v'lo mesyavemes. Now, according to Rav Asi, he says no chalitza, no yibum, nothing is done. Why? The ereva karinin bey, she's still considered to be an ereva. The islandess, the mi'aiti kram asher teled v'kaima lehem isra eshes ach hilchas sarasa saras ereva. So again, according to this opinion, the din is also when it comes to tsaras islandess, that there's no chalitza or yibum at all, because the fact is she's considered to be a tsara, a tsaras ereva. Even though you can say, well, it was a mekachtos, so Gemara over there discusses, perhaps it was medaito, it was a machlokas over there, it was medaito, shol medaito. Okay. Rabasi, v'ikadi amri koshi isur ereva, hu di asira tsarasa. Only time is in Isser Ereva do we say that the tsar is Asr. Halo Isser Ereva Tsarasul Asir Mutimai. So what's that coming to exclude? So more Rafli Mutitsaras Islanders will look Rav Asi. Again, it's depending on how you look at it, but it's a machlokas what the din is by Tsaras Islandess. Because she was an islandess, she wasn't able to have kids, so maybe it wasn't really a kedushin, and therefore it's not a kedushin. So therefore it's not really tsara, because this islandess was not really a kedushin, and therefore you could actually do yibum and chalitza with the tsaras islandess. Weiter. So he said this case. So achoysa naman. Ilim the iser mitzvah kivandim b'daraisa ramir kamei paga ba'achos kasei. If we're talking about an iser deraisa, there's an issue of achos kukaso, that you can't do yibum on one, and then all of a sudden the other one you can't do yibum with because it's her sister. El achosa the iser ereva. It means achosa of the iser ereva. Namely, again, what happened was you have Levi and Rachel were married to Reuben and Shimon, and only one of these women was an Isser Ereva to Levi, but the other one was not. And therefore, because of that, Levi is allowed to marry Rachel and can do Yibum. Isser Mitzvah Shnias. So my Karli Isser Mitzvah, Rabbi Mitzvah Shmadi Chachamim. The reason why is because even though the Chachamim instituted it, it's something which is important. You have to listen to the Chachamim. Isser Kedusha, Almana Kohen Gadol, Gerusha, Chutzal Kohen Hedges. So, V'mai Karile Isser Kedusha, why is that holy? D'chsiv, Kedoshim Yolokechem, because when it comes to these things, these Kohanim need to be holy. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Machlef, he actually flipped it around. Isser Mitzvah, Almana Kohen Gadol, Gerusha, Chutzal Kohen Hedget. Yomai Karile Isser Mitzvah. So why, when it comes to a Kohen Gadol or a Kohen Hedget, why is that not called Isser Kedusha? Why is it called Isser Mitzvah? D'chsiv, Eloha Mitzvos. It says Elohim Mitzvos over there. So Isser Kedusha Shnios Midivri Seifrim. So you might call it Isser Kedusha. Why is Shnios Arayas considered to be Kedusha? Rabbi Kol Makayim Divrei Chachamim Nikra Kadosh. Because anyone who fulfills and listens to the words of the Chachamim, you're considered to be a sanctified person. Omer Le Rabba V'chol Sheina Makayim Divrei Chachamim Kadosh Shudolo Mikri Rashanami Rashanami Lo Mikri. Now, Omer Rabba Kaddish Atzmach Motalach. So the question, what do you mean? If you listen to the Chachamim, you're a Kaddish, but if you don't, you're neutral, you're parav. No, you have to listen to Chachamim. So that can't be the diuk, but rather it just means Kaddish Atzmach Motalach. Even something which is allowed to you, you should still sanctify yourself. Notice you should try to distance yourself from things that even though technically you can do them, but nonetheless it doesn't mean you should do them. Amanal Kohen Gadol. So Kapasik Vatani. Now, it doesn't make any distinction about what type of situation this was. Loshnam in Nusu and Loshnam in Erison. Now, L'chaira doesn't make any difference if this woman became an almana, even if it was from the time of Erison. In other words, there was no bia. She was not really married to this original man, and then she became a widow. So, L'chaira, even in that situation, Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be with her, even though she was an almana in Erison. So Bishlam Amin and the Suin, I can understand why. From the Suin, Asay V'lois Asay and Asay Daichel Los Asay V'asay. So you have an Asay and a Los Asay saying, do not, as a Kohen Gadol, should not marry her. So Asay cannot be of doing Yibum cannot be Daichel Los Asay V'asay. Elamin Harrison Los Asay Gredahu. All you have is a single Los Asay. Yavo aseh v'yid chalos aseh. So what's the problem? Let a positive come and b'doy chalos aseh, which we saw numerous blot in the beginning of this Masechta. So Amar Rav Gidel, Amar Rav, Amar Kran, the pasuk says, "V'olsa yevimto hashara." Shentam liyevimto. Why does it say the extra word? Matam liyevimto. So yeshalcha yevama achas shol chalitza v'ene oil yibum. It's telling us that there is a situation where you could be Yevama and you should only have Chalitza, not Yibam. When it comes to Chavi Lavin, the din is that you should still do Chalitza, which is referring to this woman, even though you can say Aseh is Dechalos Aseh, we still say in this pasuk is the commentary you should do Yibam, you should do Chalitza. Maybe it's telling you when it comes to the Chavi Krisus, you should do Chalitza. So Makra Imo Yachbois Ish L'Kachas. It says if you don't want to take her, so you can do chalitza, which is mashma that it's only because you desire not to take her. Mashma, if you do wish to take her, you could do yibum, but it's not the case. So because you can't do yibum, so there's no din chalitza either. So it can't be talking about chayvi krisos because chayvi krisos is no din yibum. So there can't be a din chalitza. When it comes to chavi lavin, we say this pasuk is coming to tell you that when it comes to an almana or kohen gadol, the din is even if an erison should do chalitza. Yihachi chavi lavin nami. Why don't we say also by chavi lavin that you're not supposed to? Maybe don't do yibum, don't do chalitza. No, Rabbi Rachamani Yevimtai. The pasuk is Yevimtai, which is mashma is coming to include that there are certain times that you could still do it. So Mara Isa, how come sometimes we're including it and sometimes it's a miyat as we continue Chavav Beis? So Mistaber, it's logical. Chayvi lavin tasiba kedushin. When are we going to say you have to do? There's an Indian of chalitza. Is a situation where all you have is a chavi lavin, which the kedushin is typhus. Chavi krisis the latavsibu kedushin. However, when it comes to chavi krisis, the kedushin is not even chal. So therefore, because of that, we're not going to say a riboy that you should do chalitza in that situation. No, it's only by chavi lavin. So Meisiv Rav asks a question: Isser mitzvah Isser kedusha. So again, the cases of our Mishnah. If a person has tashmish with this woman, or cholatzla, or does chalitza with her, nifter tsarasa. So we say that by doing that, the tsara is potter. You don't have to do anything more to the co-wife. If you want to tell me, when it comes to chalitza to chavi lavin, as we established, there's a din deraisa based on the riboy the pasuk that there is an Indian of doing chalitza and not yibum. Ki ba'aleha amay nifter atzarasa. So why having bia is that going to pater the tzara? Because that's not really something which was supposed to be done. Because you're only supposed, the riboy only allows you to do chalitza, not yibum. So when it says who ma'isavul mafarkli, he asks and answer the same question. Let's start him katani. You have to read it in sides as such. Ba'aleha iser mitzvah. If a person is boil iser mitzvah, chalatzla iser kedusha. So when it's talking about iser chalit, iser kedusha, which again is the kohen gadol or the kohen hedget, that is talking about chalitza. However, when it comes to the shniyas l'rayas, that's talking about the situation of doing yibum. You're right. When it comes to the iser kedusha of the kohen, he's not supposed to be doing b'itz, or it's not a yibum situation, it's a chalitza situation. Meisiv Rabbi. So Rabbi asked a different question. When it comes to these different mumim that take place upon a person's private areas of being physically crushed. So saris adam hazakin, if you have a person who's a saris adam, again, someone who is not capable of having children, or an elder, o cholzin o miyavmin. So he's saying these different people, because they're not able to produce children because of their age, or as Rashi says, shepasak mileda, because she's not able to give birth, this woman, v'hailav v'chavi lavinhu, kamashwan de'avgad alav bar eludihu, biyasubia, liknois evimta v'yatzim minu beget. The truth is, if you would have bia with a zaken as a kana, even if she's not shaykh to have children, say she's post-menopause, doesn't make any difference. Still, the bia is a bia, and it's still considered to be a form of yibum. But it's telling us as follows, that o cholz and o miyavmin, the chiddush is you can even do yibum in these situations. Ketzad, Mesu, let's say the man died. V'lehem achim, and he has brothers. V'lehem nashim, and their wives. V'amdu achim, so the brothers stood up. V'asu maimer b'nishoisehen, and they did the kedusha rabban of maimer with these women. V'nasnu get, and instead of doing yibum, he just again all he did was maimer, and then they gave a get. V'choltzu, and also they did chalitza. So masha asu asoi. So what they did was accomplished. However, im balu kanu, that if they have bia, then they're kaina. Okay, mesu achem. If let's say that these brothers died, v'amdu heim, and these people, these women who cannot reproduce, stand up. V'asu maimer, we do maimer with them. V'nisho seim and us do get. O shecholtzu, we either give a get or do chalitza. Masha asu asu. However, im balu kanu, again. Once we see again that if they had bia, that's a kinyan that is a form of yibum. Even though it's chal, you're not allowed to remain because the pasuk says that you're not allowed to marry a pesua daka. So im balu my kanu. Understand, if you're telling me that we're talking about a case of a chayvi lav, lo yavo patsua daka is a lav. So how could it be that, as we said, like by al almana kohen gadol and a kohen hedget to a gerusha, so it's a din lav, it's a chayvi lav, in which is only chalitza and yibum don't do yibum. So over here, so how does yibum work? How do we say imbolu amay kanu el omerava almana min erisin nami aseh v'lo sasehu? So let's stop there for 1 second. So this is the question, and this is how question 12, he poses question 12. Maharaya, the chayvi lavin midaraisa chozul yibum. How do we see that that even a chayvi lavin is fit to do yibum? Because it says the imbol kanu when it comes to these people, including someone who is a krashavcha. The krashavcha is someone who is a chayvi lav. Nonetheless, we see that it still works. So therefore, again, l'chayr, that's a raya, that it doesn't make any difference. Even by chavi lavin, you should be able to do yibum. So the question is, why in our Mishnah does it say that you only, even min erison, that you should only do, that min nesuin, I understand. An asay and a losasay cannot be, can't push off an asay. An asay cannot push off a losasay and asay. That's nesuin. But erison, so what's the problem? Asay should be doichalos asay. So we end up saying, oh no, it's because we're only allowing chalitza, not allowing yibum. The question is, well, when it comes to this situation, you should be allowed to do yibum even in this situation, right? So, because there's this pasuk. What do you mean? We said you should be able to do yibum even when it comes to chayvi lavin. El omerava almanam in erison nami asay v'lo asehu. The truth is that it's not just by nesuin is there an asay going against an asay and a los asay. It's also by erison is the same problem. Mamzer is fine. So the fact that it says Kedoshim Yolokechem is an additional chivi asay, and therefore it's again an asay of doing yibum cannot override an asay and a los asay. So Mamzer says Sinmai Kamemar. How about those other situations of marrying mamzeres and the sina? L'char, it's only a los asay. No, ksiv this kidashtem. So that's also another asay. So therefore, again, that's again the reason why it cannot marry them. Every single situation you have an asay against the los asay. Ksiv this kidashtem. So l'char, based on the kidashtem, you should always say it's an asay and a los asay. So it should never work. El omerava gezera almanim and erison atu almanim and nesuin. You're right. The truth is, it's only an asay against the los asay. And normally, you're right. And when it comes to a chayvi lavin, you should be allowed to do nesuin. However, you should be able to do yibum. However, because you're not allowed to do it by nesuin, because it's an asay and a los asay, so too are also being guys even mishas erison. Mamzer is the malcham emar. Gezer b'makam mitzvah, atishul b'makam mitzvah. So we're geyser. Miyata, if that's the case, Eishes Achav Mi'aviv, let's say you have your brother's wife from your father's side, in which we say is Yibum, maybe Lotus Yabim, maybe you should not allow Yibum. Gezerah Mishum Eishes Achiv Mi'imo. We know that if it's from maternal, if it's your mother's side, your brother's wife from your mother's side, there's no din yibum. So maybe we can get confused. If it's from your father's side, there's yibum. Your mother's side is not yibum. So maybe you should make a zera there too. Now, yibum benachla tal rachmana mediadia. Isha shein lo ban. Fine. Everyone knows if it's all tali and nachla, we know that inheritance is tali by the father's side. So since it's tali on the Yerusha is tali on the father's side, so therefore it's not going to be any issue to make this mistake. You're not going to make this mistake between an Eishes achiv, paternal or maternal. So Isha shein lo banim lo tesavim. Maybe a woman who does not have children don't do yibum, which is the case of yibum. Gezer mishum isha sheish lo banim. So maybe you should make that gezer. No. But banim tel rachmana mediyadid Eishes achiv shahay balamoy mediyadid. Everyone's going to know that too. Everyone knows the only reason why you do yibum is not in a situation where there's no kids. If there's kids, there's no din yibum. No, you don't need to make such a gezer. Eishes achiv shahay balamoy lo tesavim and Eishes achiv that is in this world. Reuven and Shimon are both alive at the same time. Reuven dies, Shimon does yibum. So that's ba'oy lamo. But maybe we shouldn't allow that, which is the normal situation. Maybe we should be concerned that, let's say, Shimon is born after Reuven dies, in which we know there is no din yibum. So maybe in that situation we should be geyser. If we're making all these gezeres, no. Everyone knows this. That's totally be yeshiva, that they are living together. And Reuven and Shimon have to be alive at the same time. Maybe we shouldn't allow any woman to do yibum because we should be concerned that maybe one of them is an islandess, and in islandess there's no din yibum. That's not common. We're not going to be geyser on something. A milsel shchicha goes a rabbanon. So mamzer says sin and amul shchicha. The case of a woman mamzer, a mamzeres in the Sina from the Gevonim, these are also not common. So why again? Or the whole reason is because your geyser min erison atu almonamin and asuin. Lochar, you should still make these other gezeras. So we don't make these other gezeras. So maybe you should not then make a gezerah of mamzer and Sina for the same reason. El omarava, that's not the reason. The reason why almonim and erison, we say that there's no din yibum for her, is gezerah birishayna ata biyashniya. That's the maskana. What does that mean? Says Rashi, even though it's true that you could be mekayim an asay, could be doichel los asay, but that's only the first act of bia. However, afterwards there is no mitzvah anymore. That's Rashi. The lo matzi lemidchi da akayim bo asay. You already did the mitzvah asay of yibum, and therefore by having bia with her that first time, great. But afterwards, you should not be allowed to live with her anymore, and therefore, because of that, he is not allowed to do yibum. Tanya mehachi im bolu kanu. So we said that even when it comes to a kroshavcha, a petzuadaka, that if they did bia, that the kinyan works. But bia rishayna, that's referring to the bia rishayna. But we don't allow them to stay. But bia shniya, they can't stay afterwards because the pasuk says lo yavai. Hada amarava v'eitema Rav Ashi Labil says that's true. The Amri Shlakish Kol Makom Shata Moitze Asay V'Loisasay. Anytime you have an Asay and a Losasay, Imata Yachol Akayim Shneim. If you could be Mekayim both of them, Mutav, then you should do it. The whole idea of an Asay is Doichel Losasay. That doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. It's only in a situation where you have no one else, you have no other choice. It's better if you can Mekayim both. That's what you should do. The Imlav Yavo Asay V'Yidches Losasay. Then otherwise, the asay will push it off. So Hachinami, after b'chalitza, the mekayim asay v'lois asay. So too, when it comes over here, instead of doing chalitza, which is going to cause problems, even though, what do you mean? I can do the asay of yibum, it's a mitzvah. Yeah, but then you're violated a los asay of marrying this kroshavcha, and therefore it's better that you should do chalitza, because once you do chalitza, that's not an issue. Meisvei v'im balu kanu. Then why does it say that if he does be it's kinyan? Says Rashi, Alma the midiraisa rami kimei the midche losase. We see the Torah is actually telling you that it's okay. You could do it. Tiyufta. And this is actually a question. Tiyufta the Reish Lakish. He just said imati yachol kaimeshnehem lakarnule lalav. So he said that's not really true because the Torah is telling you that it works. So why would we tell you that it works? Im kanu in bol kanu, unless you want to say it's b'diavad. But again, l'chara, that shows that you could do the violation. But the truth is, what we instead advise, instead of you violating, do chalitza, so this way you'll end up not having to violate the lav. So you weren't mekayim the asay so b'shleimus because you didn't do yibum, but at least you did chalitza and you didn't have to do any other violations. Okay, we'll stop here. Let's see a couple questions. Question 11. So question 12 here you saw Maharai the Chayvi Lavin B'Daraisa Chazal Yibum. So we saw that because it says Imbolu Kanu. Question 11. Masvara Demukmina B'Havamina Kra Dematzra Chalitza B'Chayvi Lavin V'Lo B'Chayvi Krisus. So what was the Havamina? Why would we make a distinction between Chayvi Lavin and Chayvi Krisus? So this is actually on the top of the Amud, and it's because Mistabra Chavi Lavin Tafsiba Kedushin. Chavi Krisus Loy Tafsiba Kedushin. Let's see if that's what they're looking for. Question 11. Kibun de Kedushin Taisim Chavi Lavin Karinin Be Tfe Im Loy Yachmos Ve'ish Lo Kachta. Okay, fine. That was question 11. Okay. All right. TA 3 was exactly the same question. Maharaya Ma'abrais the Chavi Lavin Misya Vemis Minatayra. TB 5. Bias Kohen Gadol Ba'almana Ha'im Poteres Sarasal Maskana Umahatam. So if the Kohen Gadol has been with an almana, does that pater that sarul maskana? So he says as follows: Ba'almana minit hanesuin. If the almana was from nesuin loy poteres, that will not pater that bia. Do ase ase v'dachlo ase v'lois ase. That bia wasn't done properly because an asay cannot push off a los asay an asay. Mina erison poteres, why? The asay asay v'dachilos asay bia rishayna. So therefore, again, when it comes to an almanim and a nisuin, it does not pater the tzara because wasn't done properly. However, Mikar Adin, the Erison does pater because an asay is doichalos asay, at least with the bia rishayna.